In this video, I'll explain to you what Nitro Grips are, what they do, and more importantly, how to use them safely. Nitro Grips are resin 3D printed handles that are designed and printed by us specifically to fit our torches. They're designed to be as slimline as possible so they don't interfere with how you would normally handle your torches. Inside the handle is two small needle roller bearings. The purpose of these is to allow the body of the torch to spin freely inside the grip when you hold it. That way, when you roll the body of the torch down another surface, such as another torch or your own body, fuel will spray off the wick and create a massive boom effect, like this. Now, as you'd imagine, with the big booms comes some big consequences if you use them wrong. Fortunately though, most Nitro Grip safety is just common sense. First, let's look at how to hold your Nitro Grips and how to position them safely. You'll notice that on either side of the Nitro Grip is a collar. These are fixed in place to the body of the torch, and it's what keeps the grip from sliding up and down. When rolling your torch, make sure your hand is in the center of the grip and not touching either of these collars, as it'll stop the torch body from spinning. Once we have the correct grip, we want to make sure our wick is a reasonable distance away from our body. This is to stop the fuel spraying directly onto you or your clothing. And for this reason, I always like to place the surface I'm rolling my torch down just above the Nitro Grip and away from the wick itself. Now we know how to handle them, we're going to do a couple of practice runs with fuel, but not fire. This is because we want to see where that fuel spray goes to make sure it's not ending up on us or, even worse, anyone close by. The rotational force is going to spray off fuel perpendicular to the longest part of the wick. And in this case, I want the fuel to spray on the vertical plane. This will send fuel spray towards the floor and the ceiling, keeping it safely away from your body. When we roll the torch, try not to use too much force. We want a nice strong roll, but trying too hard will likely result in a smaller boom. In this example, I'm going to roll the torch down the body of another torch. This can only be done on the wrapped Nitro Grip torches like these. When I roll the torch, I'm going to lift the torch off the other one just before it reaches the end. This is so that the torch carries on spinning freely, which is going to give us a much bigger boom effect. Let's first see how this is looking with just the fuel and no fire. First off, I'm going to hold nice and central in the grip, wick nice and far away from my body with the other torch buttered up close to the grip, and now I'm going to roll the torch down the body and let it spin freely off the other end. Now, as you can see, the spray didn't go directly towards my body. This means I'm now safe to replicate this motion, but with a lit torch. Once I light my torch, as tempting as it might be to go crazy, I'm going to do a few small booms before committing to a big one. You should always do this when testing rolling your torch down any new body part or in any different pose. Now let's go for a big boom. Now let's take a look at a couple of alternatives. Let's experiment a bit with small booms using the palm of our hand. First, we try unlit to see if everything's looking good and check that no fuel is spraying anywhere we don't want it. Next, we'll light it up and attempt a few small booms before trying a bigger boom. Now let's take a look at going down our forearm. First, unlit practice again. Checking that wick is nice and far away from the body, checking that none of that fuel is spraying towards our face or our bodies. Then a few small booms before we're confident enough to try one big boom. Now you can roll your torch down anything you like, but before you do, make sure you do your tests and start small before committing to anything bigger. Now when you're using your Nitro Grips for regular fire manipulation, you should hold your torch like you normally would, which is typically around about the middle for most techniques. This gives you good command over the wick and makes sure the body of your torch isn't rotating when you don't want it to. So what else do we need to be aware of? Firstly, before using your Nitro Grips, check your surroundings. Make sure that there isn't anyone sharing your space that could get hurt. Secondly, be aware of fuel overspray. Any unburnt fuel is likely to end up on the floor and can pose a slip risk. This is less of an issue with low flashpoint fuels because they will evaporate quickly. However, oily high flashpoint fuels will leave behind a residue that's dangerous for yourself and other people practicing or performing. And lastly, using these in the wind is not recommended. However, if you do, be aware of which way the wind is going to blow the fuel and the flame. Make sure this is not blowing directly towards yourself or anyone else in your surrounding area. High or unpredictable winds should definitely be avoided, but for experienced performers who understand the risk, light wind can be worked with. Nitro Grip torches can be used just like any other hollow torch. The main downside is that you can use up a lot of your fuel whenever you use them. This can actually be a benefit for anyone looking to accelerate an already hot torch to the middle of the burn so they can draw vapor instantly without waiting. Most Nitro Grips are going to be attached to our hollow torches. However, they're also attached to our much larger boomsticks. Now the concept of boomsticks is the same, but they generate much larger booms and can be used more times due to the wicks holding more fuel. Now these are a great companion for fire breathers or for performers who just want something a little bit more impressive. To wrap things up, you might be thinking that these can only be used by advanced professionals. But the truth is, Nitro Grips can be used by beginners and advanced fire manipulators alike. When used correctly, they are very safe. So remember, do your unlit test first, start small, and when you're ready, go for the big boom.